Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. This is going to be the astro weather for the week of August 24th through the 31st, 2025. Big headlines, Venus is entering into the sign of Leo this week, so I'm excited to see that. But we're going to talk about all of the transits, including the transits involving the moon, to help you guys plan your week ahead. If you like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click that bell button below so that way you're alerted as to when I have new videos. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and consider sharing this with other astro fans, and leave me a comment below and let me know how you're feeling with this weekly's energy. All right, just a couple of kind of notes off the top of the video. First of all, happy Sunday to my Sunday crew if you guys are watching. Please join me this Friday. I'm going to be here live at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I'll be doing live tarot readings this week. So if you want to get your cards read, definitely hop on the live. It's always fun on Fridays to see you guys there. And consider joining my level 4 memberships if you want to be a part of my monthly reading club. You guys will actually get a reading once a month. You can choose tarot or astrology, and we take our members first. We've also got eclipses coming up soon, guys. Are you feeling it? I'm actually in the process of working on some videos and some content for you guys for eclipse season. We're going to see around the 7th of next month, there will be a lunar eclipse in Pisces. And then later at the end of the month, we're going to see a solar eclipse in Virgo. So now that we are post new moon in Virgo, which little chaotic, I think. We're definitely going to be feeling the energies building over the next couple of weeks. You definitely want to subscribe so you guys can check out those videos that I'm going to be doing on the eclipses. I also touch on them in my September horoscope. So if you guys haven't seen them, definitely check them out so that way you know what's going on next month. All right, well, let's dive into this week's energies together. Essentially, for me, I think that this week feels a little bit like a fiery spark of creativity. There's definitely a lot of self-expression in the air, and there may be some relational tensions that we're also going to see, but it's going to provide opportunity for growth. Now, we are seeing Venus shifting into bold, beautiful Leo, so there's going to be much more of an emphasis on heart-centered pursuits, romance, as well as personal flair. But we will see some oppositions that are taking place that is reminding us really to kind of balance our ego with empathy. Now, this week is where passion meets practicality, urging us to really shine when it comes to navigating emotional depths and unexpected twists. Key transits for the week is Mercury finally leaves the post-retrograde shadow. Yay! So a lot of the communication issues are really clearing up now that we're out of those degrees where Mercury was retrograde the last 2 months. Now, Venus will be entering into Leo, and when she does, she's making aspects with all of the outer planets, except for Jupiter. So there's a lot of communication and stuff kind of going on all at one time. Definitely going to make for a very interesting 48-hour period of Venus and Leo. We will see the first quarter moon square, which will be taking place in the sign of Sagittarius. And this is where we're now kind of reevaluating some of the intentions that we have set since this most recent new moon in Virgo. And that was the first one that we saw at 0 degrees just on Saturday. Jupiter in Cancer begins to trine the North Node of Destiny, which I'm looking forward to. It's a short but sweet transit, but it's really helping us embrace and grow into our emotions, healing, home, as well as our future destiny. But at the end of the week, we start to begin to see Mars in Libra building into a square with Jupiter in Cancer. So there's definitely going to be some pressure, particularly between home, family, and domestic matters, as well as the actions that we're taking in relationships. You'll see more of that in next week's video, but you'll be feeling it come the end of the week on Sunday. Now, for the spotlight of the week, we're talking all things Venus in Leo. So if you happen to have any planetary placements in Leo, sun, moon, rising, even a Leo Venus, that means you're having your Venus return here soon over the next couple of weeks. And I really like Venus moving through the sign. I think that, overall, when we think about Venus transits, love, beauty, money, pleasure, but also anything connecting to harmony or artistic abilities. Venus is the planet of attraction, and she governs how we connect with other people. So everything from how we appreciate art and aesthetics to how we handle money matters is definitely going to have a bit of a charismatic confidence boost in the fixed fire sign of Leo. Now, Leo is the fifth sign of the zodiac ruled by the sun, and obviously Leo is connected to creativity, self-expression, romance, playfulness, leadership, and a little bit of drama. So because Venus is going to be connected with a solar sign, the energy is going to be a little bit more bold and generous, very theatrical, and it's encouraging us really to kind of step into the spotlight when it comes to our relationships and celebrate our unique flair. Now, the core themes of having Venus in this sign is really amplifying confidence when it comes to love as well as self-worth. Likely you guys will find over the next couple of weeks that there's going to be a little bit more of like inspiring grand gestures when it comes to love and relationships. Great for artistic endeavors and also personal style. But Venus in Leo is all about owning your desires unapologetically. Just watch out for some of the ego clashes and maybe a tendency for some drama. Themes will definitely be connected to taking creative risks and finding joy in the limelight. As for who this is going to be impacting the most, those of you guys who are ruled by Venus, so Taurus and Libra risings, your chart rulers on the move, and my Leo sun, moon, and rising placements. Now, what you guys are going to want to watch for with Venus and Leo is just maybe increased drama in relationships. Sudden attractions or financial opportunities are likely for some, and a pull towards luxury and self-pampering. But be cautious of pride leading into conflicts, especially with the opposition to Pluto, which we will see this week, which could unearth some power struggles or deep transformation in how you value yourself and others. To make the most of this Venus and Leo transit, you want to embrace your inner star. Maybe dress up, create art, or plan a fun date night that feels a little bit more theatrical. I would be focusing on generosity without expecting anything in return and using affirmations to boost self-love. We want to channel this transit into hobbies or performances and also avoid burnout. Now, globally and personally, it's going to really depend on what's happening with your natal chart, but I do expect heightened buzz around the entertainment industry, fashion, celebrity romances, and possible shifts in economic trends that are going to be favoring creative industries. But big changes around leadership, as Leo is associated with leadership, is likely to be happening. And something to think about is that because Venus is going to be connected to the sun going through Virgo, there's going to be lots of changes in our schedule and our work, our routine, making more time for the things and the people that we love. Now, personally, I feel like this is going to be asking all of us to kind of reevaluate what brings us joy and how we can find more time for pleasure. It's possible that this can lead to some romantic sparks for those of you guys who are single and deeper bonds for couples. There can be financial windfalls that's connected to self-employment, taking risks, as well as your own personal talent. But keep in mind, the opposition to Pluto will force for some confrontations with insecurities, leading to empowering breakthroughs. Now, the dates that you guys are going to want to watch in particular is going to be August 25th through September 19th, 2025. This is how long Venus is going to be moving through the sign of Leo. And I'd like to show you guys some of the more important kind of parts of the transit for the next couple of weeks. Obviously, it's going to be kicking off on the 25th, where we are going to see Venus enter into the sign of Leo. And when Venus enters into Leo, she is kind of concluding and completing several weeks of having gone through Cancer. So this is much more internal. It's a little bit more feminine. It's private, connecting to pleasure with home, property and real estate, family, as well as just comfort, right? We're finding that comfort and our relationships to family and our home has been really important throughout this transit. Now we are shifting into a solar sign that's fixed, so there's definitely going to be a lot more drama, a lot more flair. When Venus enters into the sign of Leo, she is also going to be meeting a sextile to the moon in Libra. So it'll be interesting to watch the first couple of days as Libra is associated with Venus. So they're in nice aspects, really building on how we can kind of make more time for those who we love the most, for meeting people, connecting and collaborating with others, particularly creative collaborations, or our relationships with younger people is going to be highlighted. But when Venus moves into Leo, she's going to start making a lot of aspects to outer planets. So you're really going to see this over the first 3 days, pretty much the 25th of August through the 28th. And the first aspect she's going to be making is a trine to Saturn in Aries. Okay, so both fire signs, so it's active, bold, dynamic, creative. Venus wants pleasure, money, and relationships. Saturn wants stability and commitment. So right off the bat, I think there's a lot of support here with this transit. It's basically marking a couple-day period where we have the opportunity to stabilize influences on love and values. What it'll be doing is blending the energy of Leo's passion with Saturn's discipline. Saturn in Aries is about us, our goals, our identity, our needs, our boundaries. And really, it's going to be about protecting matters of the heart, okay? So I think that this can mean for many people that commitments can actually feel more so grounded. And it's ideal for long-term creative projects, relationship talks, possibly even investments for some people as well. So as an example, you might see under a Saturn-Venus trine, a couple might decide to invest in a shared hobby, maybe like starting a joint art business or turning something fun into something sustainable. Now, then we're going to see on the 26th and the 27th, so literally the next 2 days, then we're going to have Venus coming into a trine with Neptune in Aries. So you'll kind of feel this, like I said, about 3 days. The trine to Neptune is, I think, really wonderful because this is going to bring a little bit of a mix of like dreamy inspiration. So it's bringing form, Saturn to what we're imagining, what we're praying for, what we're manifesting, what we're visualizing. And it can be really great for people who are involved in art, theater, performance, acting. So I think it's going to be very inspirational with that trine as well. And then we're also going to see that Venus is going to come into a sextile with Uranus in Gemini. So this will bring innovative surprises in how we communicate, connect, and share. Potential opportunities for sudden kind of romantic getaways. Also great for media, creative writing, and anything revolving around self-expression. And then we are going to see Venus come into an opposition with Pluto in Aquarius. And so because it's all around like the same degrees, you get a lot of like sweet and a little bit of salty at the same time. It won't be until the 27th that we will see Venus starting to come into an opposition with Pluto in Aquarius. Obviously, we have seen in recent months quite a few oppositions to Pluto. We saw Mars retrograde opposing, which brought a lot of tension at the beginning of the year and also in the spring. Recently, with Mercury going through this sign and the Sun going through this sign, we saw oppositions to Pluto. Now we see Venus go through the opposition as well. And oppositions are relational. It really indicates that there is going to be something that is changing and transforming. There's pressure, there's some kind of conflict or maybe even crisis or some kind of an exposure of something that has been kind of underneath the radar becoming kind of visible. And it's challenging our ability to feel safe, secure, and loved or lovable. So the downside of the transit that we're going to see on the 27th is that this does bring up drama. And Leo is the individual, it's the celebrity, it's the creative, it's the woman, it's also about femininity. And the challenges that come from standing out, Leo, and the criticism that you get from the crowd, right, Aquarius. This can bring tension in, collaborations. There could also be tension when it comes to our social networks and circles. There can also be some stuff kind of going on out in the world in terms of media where a woman, a female celebrity, a female leader is coming under, like the spotlight and is receiving some kind of like criticism. But it is possible that we can see that there could be like a big celebrity breakup making headlines. We could see some news revolving around a world female leader that's also being criticized or potentially being replaced or stepping down. So we'll kind of wait and see what happens with this. I'm not sure how it's going to manifest totally, but watch for, those intense transformations in friendships, money, values, relationships. And certainly the 26th and the 27th, it seems like romance is idealistic. It's certainly inventive. But in order to make changes, we're going to find that, power dynamics actually have to surface in order for us to heal and work through some of these issues. I'm kind of feeling like for some people, there can be with these aspects, like a sudden, spontaneous, soulful connection at a social event. There might be underlining kind of like jealousies coming up with the Pluto opposition. And then obviously prompt, honest discussions that can kind of come about that can lead to deeper intimacy. Now, we don't have much going on with Venus all the way until mid-September. So there's going to be almost like a 2-week break where she's not really making any aspects unless we see stuff going on with the moon. So this is going to lead us to the 16th of September, where we're going to see then Venus is coming into a sextile with Mars in Libra, which I like. We've got, the planet that deals with drive, passion, aggression, assertiveness in Libra, taking action in relationships, really harmonizing with Venus towards the tail end of her transit in the sign of Leo. For this aspect, what this basically means is that, now we suddenly have the opportunity to take a harmonious kind of action in relationships. At the same time, Venus will be trining Chiron in Aries. So this is also going to bring up the opportunity to heal wounds revolving around self-expression through the support of, Libra people, astrologers, therapists, spouses, business partners, clients. And it's really going to allow us to kind of have a breakthrough and I think have more opportunity for flirting, connecting with people, mending heartaches, and it's really going to be through bold vulnerability that this will take place. With this aspect, it makes me think that there could be some people that are overcoming past rejections, and they might kind of confidently, ask somebody out to dinner, and that's that kind of blending energy with Mars and Venus and the trine to Chiron. And it feels like we're finally overcoming some of the hangups that we've had in previous relationship issues, financial issues, and we're feeling a little bit more bold and confident. And then on the 18th of September, we're going to see that Venus is going to come into and in conjunct with Saturn, which will be back in Pisces next month. So get ready, guys. And when Venus in conjuncts or quincunxes Saturn, it's like a uncomfortable angle. They're trying to kind of reconcile and find ways to be able to blend both energies. Certainly Saturn retrograde in Pisces is maybe a little unsure. It can be lacking confidence, visibility, or clarity. And we have Venus that's actually coming into the late degrees, and it's going to be conjunct Regulus. So it's definitely going to be about, I think, celebrities, female actresses, and anything kind of connected to hidden boundaries or limitations when it comes to relationships, money, or self-expression. Now, I kind of feel like whenever I see it in conjunct or a quincunx, there's this subtle tension, and it requires adjustment between obviously desires, Venus, and boundaries, Saturn. So love or finances can feel a little off kilter, and there's definitely some kind of hidden motives. So there's going to be some kind of blind spots that can kind of come up in relationships. So we want to be flexible when it comes to these topics. And I would say if you guys are trying to plan something, you're trying to do something that is very dramatic or big or bold, there can be this sense of reevaluating our responsibilities on this day and trying to kind of find the balance between fantasy and reality with Saturn in Pisces. Then on the 19th, this will be the last day that we're going to see Venus in the sign of Leo before she's going to be moving into Virgo. And when she moves into Virgo, it'll be a whole other video, but we'll kind of cover that as we get into September. But it's interesting because the moon and Venus are actually going to move through the late degrees of Leo at the same time and then ingress into Virgo. So we're definitely going to feel that shift on the 19th. That's like less out and about doing things, more focusing on our health, our habits, and our routines. Obviously, we're kind of shifting from something that has been more theatrical to something that's more practical. And we're going to kind of focus, or I guess turn our focus from the more dramatic Leo flair to kind of details and refining our relationships through acts of kindness. So we might be focused more than in September on, organizing a thoughtful, kind of event, or everyday gestures like cooking a healthy meal, or, helping a partner with something. So enjoy the bold energy while we've got it. Obviously, Venus does not do as well going through Virgo because love and relationships require work. And we will see Venus that will be dancing, going through eclipse degrees, coming into conjunctions with the South Node, and that's going to represent kind of a clearing out of the things that haven't really felt as good. So definitely let me know how you guys are feeling with the Venus and Leo transits. It's going to be pretty buck wild right off the bat. So let's go ahead and get into the rest of the transits for this week. And we're going to be starting with Sunday, August the 24th. So if you guys are watching me on Sunday morning, what's up, Sunday crew? How are you guys doing? I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait for September. I feel like fall is like my favorite time of the year. So I'm really excited to kind of see August wrap up this week and not only get into September and have like a totally shift in, the seasons, but also a shift in the astrology. There's a lot of change that's coming. So let's see how we can kind of wrap up August starting on Sunday, the 24th. As you guys are waking up, moon's in Virgo, okay? And if you guys saw my channel last week when I was talking about this Sunday, I was like, this is the Sunday to get things done. The reason being is we're after the new moon in Virgo, so we're kind of gung-ho for these new kind of routines, habits, schedule and shifts. The moon is now going to be waxing through, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius for the next couple of days. Today is like the last day as the moon's going through Virgo to kind of feel like we're getting our act together. So obviously Virgo is about kind of organizing, cleaning. It's about purifying. It's also about service. So it's a good day to get things cleared out, emotionally speaking, moon south node, but also when it comes to, meal prepping, confirming appointments for the week, getting your home in order, getting everything ready to go. Great day to do it. Watch for the mood swings because the moon's going to come into connection with the south node. Now, while that's happening, we're also kind of focusing on Mercury because Mercury is tied to the moon in Virgo. It rules Virgo. And Mercury is actually getting ready to leave shadow. Once it hits about 15 degrees, it's out of shadow. Mercury retrograde is over. And communication is going to improve. Something else to think about is that obviously Venus is kind of hovering around 29 degrees today. So you're going to kind of feel that kind of need to wrap up the tour of Venus in Cancer. And we're getting ready to be a little bit more bold and dynamic. And let's see what else is kind of going on. The daily vibe for Sunday, I think, is pretty grounded with the moon in Virgo. We can feel a little introspective as well. That can definitely be happening. Primarily because the moon is sextiling Jupiter, so it's helping us kind of get our home, our emotions, our family stuff in order. And this is also with the moon south node connection about releasing old habits and improving clarity, especially when it comes to our daily habits and routine. So there can be some tension that's kind of brewing in relationships as Venus is beginning to come into an opposition with Pluto. So if you're a little bit more sensitive, you're going to feel that. Maybe stirring a little bit of like the emotional depths. And I would say to best navigate Sunday, organize your space or routines and clear up any mental fog. Virgo moon loves having lists and things to do. And I would say avoid power struggles by just becoming aware of where there's some hidden tension that's coming up. Use Mercury coming out of shadow and this forward momentum to have honest talks with those who you need to connect with. As the moon is going through Virgo, it's going to connect with the south node. Oops, sorry guys, there we go. It's going to connect with the south node. It looks like in the late morning, around 18 degrees. 18 is always about health and organization. Keep an eye on the tummy troubles today. Keep an eye on your diet. There's definitely a need to kind of recognize and realize where we need to clean something up or clean something out. So some of you guys might benefit from like detoxes, fasts, cleanses today, or maybe it's just an emotional cleanse. Maybe it's just a deep cleaning on your house. So if you're taking me along with you, to kind of clean up your kids' rooms, to clean out the fridge, to run errands, go to the gym, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So thanks for taking me with you. The moon will start to separate from the south node come midday. And then it's going to keep on moving. Not much else is going to be happening other than Venus is kind of just chilling at 29. So we're starting to feel that wrap up. And then as we get into the evening, the moon is moving further and further away from the south node, starting to come into an in conjunct or a quincunx with Chiron overnight. But most of you guys aren't going to be picking up on that. So that's then going to take us into what will be Monday, the 25th. And in the morning, the moon is still hanging out in Virgo. So if you're an early riser, there's still a lot of opportunity to get things in order, get things done. It can feel very productive very early in the morning. Obviously, this is still highlighting Mercury leaving shadow. So we're going to have a very productive communicative early morning. So if you start early, if you want to work out early, if you want to, confirm appointments, have meeting stuff, do it early in the morning. It's going to be around 7 a.m. Central Time, so that's going to be closer to 5 on the Pacific Coast, closer to 8 on the East Coast, but getting up and getting things in order is definitely going to be beneficial. Shortly after that, then we're going to see the moon is going to ingress into Libra, so it's a pretty definitive vibe shift around late morning. And when the moon goes into Libra, we're now focusing on Venus, which is about to change signs. The moon is also sextile Venus, which is nice. And when the moon goes into Libra, we focus on partnerships, connection with others, relationships, meeting people. And we have a really great socializing, communication, connection energy. So I could see a lot of people preparing stuff before they're going into meetings, or they're giving like pitches, or they're having to have, phone calls. The moon is going to trine Uranus in Gemini, which is great for spontaneous, travel, communication, connection, emails, and planning the future. And it's also going to trine Pluto, which is about empowering relationships. So we have a grand air trine on Monday morning. That's the positive of it. The challenging aspect is that we have the moon at 0 degrees of Libra, which is learning or figuring out how to best emotionally connect. 0 degrees always represent kind of the most potent aspect or kind of characteristics of that sign. So learning how to relate. And it will oppose Saturn in Aries at 0 degrees. Guys, these are the world access points. So I'm wondering what's happening on Monday, because, those are getting triggered. Now, the moon won't only oppose Saturn, it's also going to oppose Neptune. So if you want to, get outside of the moon-Saturn opposition, where we feel emotionally limited or stuck or not knowing how to connect with others, or if you want to get out of the confusion and the emotional kind of like mess of the moon in opposition to Neptune, where we're lost or unsure, there's something, where we feel lack of faith in ourselves, lack of confidence, you want to tap into this beautiful air trine where we're like, you know what, I'm going to send the email, I'm going to make the call, I'm going to reach out to that person, I'm going to connect with them, I'm going to network, because I think that that's the kind of the best way to navigate this. And I think that for the most part, the most important, key transit is that Venus is actually going to enter into the sign of Leo. So the fact that the moon changes signs, and then 2 hours later, then we see Venus change signs, and we've got a sextile between air and fire, moon and Venus, very relational, especially as you're getting into like midday. So, for me, I kind of think that the morning kind of shifts from this more kind of meticulous, detail-oriented Virgo moon to, shifting into what's going to be kind of like Libra-oriented. So it's more relationship connected. We're also going to be seeing that some of the oppositions between the moon to Saturn and Neptune, it can make us feel like we're doubting ourselves, right? And I think the trines are offering transformative insights, surprises, and opportunities to kind of connect. So on Monday, you want to start with getting all of your to-do stuff early in the morning done, all of your practical tasks, all of that stuff, get it out of the way, because the afternoon on seems rather social. And as the moon goes into Libra, we're seeking kind of like equilibrium in our relationships, or we're checking with other people, or we're following up with them, or making plans. And this is really about, also with the oppositions to Saturn, kind of embracing structure. Obviously, Venus and Saturn are going to be trining this day. So we're seeking, structure when it comes to our relationships. We're seeking structure when it comes to pleasure pursuits, or things that we're passionate about, or anything that is creative. So if you have to plan a creative date, good time to do it, right? Really use this day to kind of harness the Venus-Saturn stability. Venus is love, relationships, money, and Saturn can be about timing. It can be commitment. It can also be associated with maturity. So we can feel a little bit more bold and capable of being able to express what's on our heart, and also find that we can have kind of strengthening bonds with certain partnerships and relationships. Now, Aries is the individual. Leo's also represents kind of our heart's desire. So if you're somebody who's not looking for relational things, or maybe you're single, this is just more kind of feeling more at peace with yourself, more confident with yourself. Self-love is very much connected to Leo. So this is a good day for like self-love affirmations, and really doing things that you love, and encouraging other people to, to join in. So it's like, I love doing this. This is what I've created. Do you want to do this with me? Or this is what I have planned. Do you want to go? So it can be really wonderful for connecting with others. So as the day goes on, we're going to have that grand air trine pretty much midday. And then we start to lose it once the moon is getting later in the day into Libra. Not much else is happening. Mercury has officially left shadow, so that's wonderful. And then the Libra moon is relatively unaffected for the rest of the evening. Now, this is going to take us into the 26th, which is going to be Tuesday. And this is a day that you guys are going to want to watch. So if you have your red pen or your red Sharpie, circle Tuesday, because it's going to be pretty passionate or pretty heated, depending on how it manifests in your chart. Moon's continuing to go through Libra, so a lot of the same relational kind of themes. However, the moon is going to come into conjunction with Mars in Libra, okay? So that means that there's emotional focus on relationships, beauty, balance, and harmony. We've got Mars that's debilitated in Libra, right? It's indecisive. It doesn't know which way to go, or there can be a lot of action or a lot of passion even. But when the Moon-Mars conjunction happens, it basically means that there can be some conflicts and quarrels in relationships with other people, or other people are heated, or they're impatient, or they're aggressive, or they're rushing through things to get things done. Now, remember, when we look at the moon in Libra, we're watching Venus, okay? So Venus is now 1 degree away from the opposition with Pluto, which definitely brings, the intensity in relationships. It brings the drama, brings the exposure of stuff that's been hidden. It can bring the drama in the friend groups or online, and it can also show you where people are a little bit more jealous, they're a little bit more possessive, or people, quite frankly, are just feeling a little bit more combative when it comes to relationships as well. Venus is still in a trine to Saturn. So, I think that we can navigate this opposition by being, more confident, by reinforcing, our own self-love, by also being a little bit more independent and not getting sucked into some of the drama that can be happening in the world. And with Venus in now a trine, or building into a trine with Neptune on this day, it can give us the opportunity to be a little bit more compassionate and sensitive, especially to ourselves, and not get sucked into stuff if we can kind of help it. By the same token, Neptune and Saturn can represent not seeing things so clearly. So if we're not aware of ourselves, if we're not seeing the, situation the way that it really is, or if we're seeing things a little skewed, we can definitely get sucked into the drama. And certainly Leo loves the drama. Venus will also start coming into a sextile with Uranus in Gemini. So it does make things a little bit more kind of communicative. There is a lot more news, information, things that are kind of popping up on social media. There could be sudden, conversations in love and relationships. There could be also like some gossip. Like Pluto Venus can be kind of gossipy. We can also see with, Venus sextile Uranus, there can be some really juicy Hollywood gossip that can kind of come out this week. And I would say that on Tuesday, it's very dynamic and it's very relational. There can be passion with Moon and Mars, where suddenly there is more friskiness and togetherness, with partners. And some of you guys might like that. You might like the action that is in partnerships. And it's being fueled by also like communication, because we're seeing that the Moon and Mars are kind of sextiling Mercury and Leo as well. So I think a lot of us are like making plans for later in the week, or, we're kind of talking to our partners about what we're wanting to do or what fun things we can kind of get into. Tuesday for me feels, dynamic and relational, and that there is going to be a huge focus on communication. Just watch, because as the moon is coming into conjunction with Mars, people can get kind of agitated and impatient. And as the day goes on, the moon is then going to pass Mars. So that's going to happen around 9 a.m. Central Time. And then the moon is going to come into a square with Jupiter, which can make people very emotionally sensitive, reactionary, all of that fun stuff, because Jupiter is connected to, obviously, the moon. And while they're squaring each other, it represents this tension that's honestly kind of brewing all week into next week between how we are growing emotionally, growing and moving on from the past, evolving when it comes to our home and family dynamics, and how that's pushing us or incentivizing us to take action, right? Mars and Libra in relationships. where we need our partners more, where it's pushing us to realize that we need support from other people. It could be a therapist, it could be an astrologer. It could also indicate that it's incentivizing us to go, actually, because I need this emotional change, this growth, this change at home, now I have to be more assertive in relationships. Or, some people might go, well, I'm cutting relationships off. Oppositions show us where there's something that's coming up that we can no longer avoid, right? So with Venus and Pluto in opposition, are you going to take action and say, okay, this isn't working, or this isn't bringing me joy? And really, I think if we're able to tap into the trine with Saturn and Neptune and Aries, and we're really in tune with what we must do, or seeing things a little bit more clearly, it will allow us to also work well with other people and let other people know what we need to feel more so supported, or allowing us to show up and support other people better. So there's some intensity that's kind of brewing on the 26th. I would say the trick here today is to channel Mars energy into cooperative efforts. It's like, okay, how can we, tackle this problem together? Let's be about the solution, not the problem. And it could manifest as like, team projects or sit downs that you have, with a partner, with a business partner or a client. And this is also, potentially with the moon square Jupiter, we have to watch for being overly optimistic. We have to kind of ground our dreams in practical steps to avoid any relational trauma from the Pluto opposition. Now, it looks like when the moon and Mars meet, it's going to be at 12 degrees and change of Libra. And we know that 12 can represent things that are hidden, or things that we didn't see, or something that's kind of like coming out of the blue. It can also represent secrets. So there can be some secretive things that are coming up in relationships. And the Venus-Pluto opposition is just really sparking it in a very, very big way. So let's see what the Sabian symbol is for 13 degrees of Libra. I didn't even pull this, but I want to see what it says. 13 degrees of Libra, children blowing soap bubbles. Okay, so the keyword is enchantment. The theme is the act of play. So the symbol speaks to the beauty and pleasure that can be discovered even when the most unpromising of relationships and circumstances, when the mind is free from prejudice and preconceptions. The image of children blowing soap bubbles symbolizes playfulness, amusement, and delight in innocent or frivolous pastimes. The emphasis here is on imagination and enjoyment of the lighter side of life. The challenge of this degree is being able to distinguish the difference between childlike and childish behavior. At its highest, the symbol represents creativity, charm, and talent for adding, to that cut off. Where is it? For adding sparkle and wit to any situation. The negative is a refusal to grow up and accept responsibility, or difficulty functioning in the practical everyday world, as a tendency to retreat into the world of fantasy and delusion when the going gets rough. The accent is on fun and entertainment. You may find it hard to keep your mind on work today. Your greatest advantage lies in using your imagination. Take a fresh look at situations and people you have been taking for granted. Find at least one new exciting thing to do that you weren't aware of before. Allow yourself to enjoy. Guard against failing to take crisis seriously. Don't fiddle while Rome burns. The stepping stones are fun, play, amusement, enjoyment, delight, inspiration, fantasy, charm, euphoria, magic, innocence, childish, or childlike. Well, certainly Leo is children, but I think we could see some people feeling like there's some childish behavior going on in their relationships. And it's a lot of like, are they playing, or are they just like not taking this seriously, right? I think we can kind of see that. Obviously, Venus is tied to the sun because it's in Leo. The sun's going through Virgo, and it's at a communication degree. And Pluto is going to be tied to Uranus, and Uranus is trining. So it can really kind of talk about where maybe just in like, and I've seen this in relationships, there's like a lot of stuff coming up where we're talking to our partners or spouses, our people in our lives that we're kind of partnered with, Libra, about how other people are handling like relationship stuff or things that are going on in relationships. And we could be going back and forth and like debating things or discussing things. And then somebody has like a very childish or kind of immature take on something. And then that kind of sparks some kind of like back and forth debate, right? You could see that. I also wonder if it's going to be about some drama that partnerships or relationships are having connected or correlated to work. Okay. So like where people are overworking, it's impacting relationships, or somebody it isn't working, isn't pulling their weight. And then somebody's like, why don't you get a job? The drama that's happening with inter-office relationships, how we're relating to other people, is so-and-so dating somebody at work? Is there some drama there? We can see that kind of coming up as well. So we'll see. I would just say, try to channel this Martian energy into something positive. Watch for the childish behavior, but also be creative, have fun. I mean, I think that the Moon, Mars, sextile Mercury is how we can kind of be a little bit more playful, and we could be a little bit more flirty, and things don't have to feel heavy, right? Like when planets are in air and fire signs and they're aspecting each other, there is this kind of connection and this like fun, and the ability to kind of be more creative and like imaginative. So hopefully it's positive for you guys on that day. Moon will separate from Mars in the PM hours, and then we start to see it continues to go through Libra. So I wonder, you guys let me know, do you have relational issues on Tuesday? Because some people, this might be like the turning point with Venus in opposition to Pluto and Moon conjunct Mars. Like some people are like, I'm done, this is over. That can happen. Or I'm done with this thing, or my relationship to this thing. That's possible as well. All right, we get into the 27th, which is going to be Wednesday, and the moon is going to continue to go through Libra for like the first half of the day. The real big aspect that the moon is going to be making is that it is going to come into an opposition with Chiron and Aries. So this represents our own individual personal wounds. It's retrograde, so we're kind of reflecting, turning within, working through some of that stuff. And the moon in Libra in opposition to Chiron is saying like where we're wounded or not working through our issues or not self-aware, or maybe we're not confident, can create some challenges for partnering with other people. Still feeling the effects of Venus in opposition to Pluto that's now starting to separate, but it's still in the air until about like the 28th or so. So when I look at Wednesday, with all of those aspects right at the beginning of the day, there can be opportunities to heal through some of this stuff and work together, and get feedback also, from other people, or we can see the separation in relationships as a result of unhealed or dealt with wounds. Mercury is still in a sextile with the moon early in the morning, so it's good for communication still, but we start to kind of lose it as the day goes on. Now, what you're going to see is a total vibe shift on Wednesday, and this is because the moon later in the day will go into Scorpio, and that's going to be actually in the evening hours. Okay, so when the moon goes into Scorpio, it's not as relational, it's more reflective, it is transformative, it's intense, it's passionate, and the moon is actually going to be a focal point of a T-square between Venus in Leo, Pluto in Aquarius, and the moon in Scorpio. So if you happen to have, early degree placements of the fixed signs, you're going to be feeling this. And when the moon goes through Scorpio, we're always looking at Mars and we're looking at Pluto. Okay, well, Mars isn't really doing anything right now. It is starting to build into a square of Jupiter, but it's still a little wide. But the moon square Pluto brings up emotional pressure to change and transform. And Scorpio is endings, death, transformation, intimacy, secrets, power struggles. So that's going to be an intense square. And the second that the moon gets into Scorpio, it's now in conjunct and quincunx Saturn and Neptune in Aries, in conjunct and quincunx also Uranus and Gemini. So the moon in Scorpio on Wednesday night is the focal point of a yod between these outer planets. And it's basically pointing to the events and the circumstances happening on Wednesday night, saying the crisis, the pressure, the change, the drama, the fear that's coming up is basically the catalyst for change. And that change requires us to communicate, think, and learn differently. Uranus and Gemini, move differently, travel differently, and also become more self-aware. Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Aries. So totally different vibe shift on Wednesday night. The key transit for the day, I think, is actually going to be the yod. And the feeling that I got with the 27th is that at first there's like healing wounds that take place early in the day with the moon in opposition to Chiron. that is meant to kind of get balanced out. And then it gives way to the moon going into Scorpio, where there's going to be deep kind of emotional probing, especially with the square to Pluto. Now, it shows also fated adjustments because it's the focal point of that yod, and it's highlighting the need to transform. Now, Pluto square the moon is just more intensifying passion and maybe power struggles. I think with the moon squaring Pluto, it brings up transformation and changes for the collective, and the square to Venus is also connecting to money, relationships. And this can be indicating that there is some kind of pressure financially kind of going on out in the world Wednesday night going into what will be Thursday morning. I would say for the most part on the 27th, to navigate the day, you really want to address your vulnerabilities in relationships in a gentle fashion, right? Because people are going to be much more sensitive. And then also it's going to give us the opportunity to kind of better relate to others. As the moon goes into Scorpio in the evening, this is really asking us to dive into introspection. I would use the focal point of the Yod's energy, I think, to, work with meditation, especially because it's going to quincunx Saturn and Neptune and Aries. And it can also be an opportunity to really take a hard look at what needs to actually change when it comes to our values, our finances, as well as our relationships. And that's because it's going to catch the square to Pluto and Venus in the late night hours. All right, this will take us into Thursday, the 28th. And now we're dealing with a little bit of easier astrological stuff. Now, at least with the moon going through Scorpio, it's coming into a sextile with the sun in Virgo. So this is the first real nice kind of positive aspect that we're seeing since the new moon in Virgo. And now we're able to kind of build off of actions, work, productivity, health, and healing to promote change. So believe it or not, having a routine this week really stabilizes us. It really supports us. It's going to help us work through some of the change and the transformation that needs to come up. There's no big aspects happening on Thursday. I think that with the moon in Scorpio, things still feel rather intense, but supported because of that sextile to the sun in Virgo. And it's really kind of blending emotional depth with practical vitality for productive inner work. I would say for the most part, that sextile is going to be the strongest kind of in the morning. And then we start to lose that by the time that you're getting to midday. And we don't have any other real aspects going on with the moon. So you're going to find that the first half of the day, I think, is going to be the most productive. You may find that, navigating on Thursday, if you need to be focusing on healing, on organizing, and the moon in Scorpio is great for research. It's also great for shadow work. And the sextile to the sun is really aligning feelings with our daily routine. So stay on task, have a routine, focus on that, especially since the new moon in Virgo helped you kind of hit restart in the Virgo area of your chart. Avoid suspicion. There can be some suspicion, obviously, with the moon in Scorpio. And I would say trust your intuition for how to make subtle changes at work, within your health, or your habits. Now, the moon's going to keep going through Scorpio, not making really any other aspects into the evening, but the mood can still be a little intense. And then as we're waking up on the 29th, which will be Friday, the moon is actually coming into a trine with Jupiter in Cancer, which is great because the moon is associated with Jupiter. And it's also coming into a trine with the North Node, the nodes of fate. So we have a grand water trine taking place first thing in the morning on Friday, the 29th. I like it. I feel like there is this sense of now we're more aware of what does need to kind of end, what does need to change, what does need to transform. There can be shifts going on with, banking and lending and loans and taxes and debt, because that's very much Scorpio. But Scorpio is also very much tied to Mars. So a lot of the action that's taking place is more in relationships, and it's pushing us to kind of emotionally reflect on what happenings are taking place in relationships. How does it make us feel? What do we need to change? How is it kind of hitting us when it comes to our security or our intimacy? I think that for the most part, today with the trine to Jupiter, we're feeling a little bit more sensitive, tapped in, emotional. You might notice that your intuition is just screaming. And also with the trine to the North Node. And water placements represent conclusions, like endings, like clearings. So it can be about coming to terms with what's changing and also the financial or the psychological impact that that has on us. So the daily vibe for Friday feels expansive and like our destiny is aligning in a way, even if there can be really heavy emotions coming up. The emotional flow, though, is towards growth and abundance and like nurturing our home or nurturing our families and also having faith. I think the moon in Scorpio can be really a difficult kind of transit because we can feel like, oh my God, why is everything falling apart? When in reality, the moon is actually waxing. So it's saying it's preparing us to come into what will be early September's lunar eclipse in Pisces. This is one of the aspects that's like, look, in order to receive that goodness, we have to be willing to embrace change. So on Friday, I would say, really pursue soulful connections or family matters. The trines do amplify luck for some people. Obviously, Scorpio is about what we're willing to let go of and then what new things we can receive. Meditation, visualization, or anything revolving around providing emotional security, I think is actually really beneficial on Friday pretty much all day. And the moon's going to pick up the trine to Jupiter. It looks like first thing in the morning, and then it's going to trine the north node. So pay attention to what's changing on Friday morning, but then also be like, okay, this can be a good thing. Like, how do I open up to this? How am I going to be receptive to these changes? And just kind of roll with the punches is my advice, and definitely listen to your gut. Now, as the day goes on, the moon's going to keep moving through Scorpio, not really making any aspects other than you will see the moon in the PM hours of Friday. It will come into a square with Mercury in Leo. So that does provide some tension in communication, and like plans can change with the moon, squaring Mercury because Mercury is connected to the south node. There can also be some financial changes that can kind of be happening or some news that's coming out about financial markets or like, the end of the day with the market closing and, people having news coming out. It always happens like that. It's like after, the markets have closed, Friday, Saturday, there's some kind of news. So I'll be waiting to see what that news is, what's happening. And what's kind of what's taking place, and it can be a little chaotic because it looks like that moon square Mercury is going to be at 23, and that's a Uranian degree. So there could be some miscommunications, misunderstandings, people getting a little intense, and having some conflict or some drama. Certainly some tension with changing circumstances and like traveling or business plans that can be happening on Friday night. Okay. All right, and then this is going to take us into what will be Saturday, which is the 30th. And depending on what time you guys wake up in the morning, first thing in the morning, the moon is still in Scorpio. So, we're wrapping up what's been about 2.5 days of just a lot of like intensity. And now we're going to be moving into the moon in Sag, which will be happening in the morning hours around, looks like it's going to be closer to like 9:30, 10 Central Time. And when the moon goes into Sag, we're looking at Jupiter, okay? Jupiter's not doing much. However, something that we are feeling that's beneficial is that Jupiter is trining the north node. It's starting to come into a trine. So Jupiter wants growth, abundance, emotional vulnerability in Cancer. It wants us to expand our home, move, expand our family. And that also means that in order to do that, we have to trust the process. North node in Pisces is we have to trust that whatever is meant to happen will. We have to believe in a higher power. Maybe we have a religious or a spiritual practice. Maybe we have a meditation practice that as long as we're feeling our way into it emotionally, we know that actually growth and change can be good. On the other side of this, we're also feeling the fact that now pretty much, Saturday until Monday of next week, we are starting to feel Mars in Libra heating up relationships, action, and sometimes making diplomacy challenging. Is bringing up, some stress and some tension emotionally on the home front. It's like, well, this is happening with the family, or we're moving, or this is what's changing, or there's new additions, or there's some need to improve the home. And that is making us take action in relationships. And it wants us to learn how to be diplomatic and work together, seek therapy, or maybe seek a reading or some kind of guidance, a mentor, maybe even a coach. But it's also showing us where through the square, both things have to be able to work together in order to kind of, overcome some of the challenges. So my thought is like the tension in relationships is still kind of brewing on Saturday, but you may not see it until we're getting closer to like Sunday, Monday. Now, the moon, on the other hand, is going through Sag, and what I like about this is that the moon's going to be making a lot of aspects in the sky. The first one it's going to make is going to be an opposition to Uranus and a trine to Saturn. This is going to be a fire trine on Saturday morning between the moon, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and Venus in Leo. So if you play your cards right, Saturday morning can be very fun. It can be very adventurous. It can be great for travel. Obviously, moon in Sag wants to be in an airport. It wants to be traveling. It wants to be learning, soaking up culture, and having an adventure. And that's supported by Saturn in Aries, where you're committing to something, or you're bravely accepting some kind of challenge. It's feeling inspired with the trine with the moon and creative. And it's feeling a lot of love and charisma and emotion and fun from Venus in Leo. So I like Saturday for the most part, to be honest with you. I think it could be a great day to go somewhere, plan a trip, hang out with your kids, take a class, have a romantic date even. I mean, it can be great for that all day long, but it will oppose Uranus. That is something to think about, is it will oppose Uranus. So there can be some curveballs, some change of plans, particularly with education, travel, or legal stuff can be kind of popping up. And the moon will also sextile Pluto. So it's like, my God, there were so many other aspects that are going to be happening. So if we watch Saturday morning, it'll trine Saturn first thing. Then it's going to oppose Uranus around midday, and then trine Neptune and sextile Pluto. And then it will not be until the evening hours that you're going to see the moon that's going to come into a trine with Venus. But still, Saturday night, great date night, I think. The only downside is that even in spite of the trine to Venus, which can be very romantic, now the moon is coming into a square with the sun. But that's going to happen later in the evening. So it's not really going to kind of squash any Saturday night plans. It's going to happen overnight into the early morning hours on Sunday, the 31st. So my thought is putting it all together on Saturday. We've got the first quarter moon, which means that this is crisis in action. Now we're reassessing what intentions we set in motion last week under the new moon in Virgo. Virgo, it was about organization, care, cleanliness, responsibility, service, and it is a mutable sign, so it's about change. Sagittarius is, well, what do we believe in? What is possible? And I think the trap with the Virgo, Sagittarius square is Virgo wants planning, practicality, details, and, commitment. And Sagittarius is just kind of all over the map, and it can be so focused on the bigger picture, or, being a little too overly optimistic that something's not really resonating. So like scheduling and traveling, or work and traveling, there is some kind of friction that's kind of coming up here. Maybe we're feeling, if we are traveling over the weekend, we're just kind of scrambling. We have a lot of stuff that we have to get in order, or things that we have to get done to get kind of back into work. But the day starts with a very kind of brooding, intense Scorpio moon, and then it shifts into this more adventurous kind of optimistic sign, Sag. We'll see surprises with opposition to Uranus early in the day, but I think if we stay disciplined and we stay focused with the trine to Saturn and Neptune, we can actually push through some of this, and we can kind of like have a really great Saturday. So my tip for you on Saturday is just embrace the change that's happening in the morning. Maybe use the fire trine for, creative or romantic pursuits. Set goals, but do it flexibly, and try to navigate the square's tension Sunday into Monday, where there can be a change of plans. Now, on Sunday, the 31st, we wake up and the moon is still in Sagittarius. Not really making any aspects off the bat, but we are going to see that later in the day, the moon will sextile Mars. So it's still great for traveling. Okay, this is later in the early evening. Traveling, communication gets highlighted, and then we are going to see the moon come into a square with the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. So Sunday could feel like a very fateful day. Once again, still bringing up lots of themes connecting to what? Sagittarius. So because this is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter's in the 4th house, it's laws and Jupiter's laws connecting to homeland, laws connecting to leadership, laws connecting to property, to real estate. There could also be some kind of friction because the moon's going to in conjunct or quincunx Jupiter, where it's like, well, I know I need to expand or I need to make changes, but I'm maybe avoiding the emotional side of things, or I'm not wanting to kind of deal with, having to make these changes. And there's some emotions that are coming up because the moon and Jupiter are about 8 signs away from each other. So that can mean that there is some change going on for some countries, especially in terms of transportation, immigration, things connecting to import and export. That can definitely be a theme here as well. So on Sunday, what you're going to find is that, because Jupiter is getting highlighted and now Mars is about 2 degrees away from the square, you're starting to feel the heat, the impulsiveness, the risk-takingness, maybe some of you guys, the friction in relationships that is kind of beating down on Jupiter in Cancer. So you'll start to feel that, even though it's really going to be perfecting going into the beginning of next week. For me, I think that Sunday feels expansive and action-oriented. That's the positive, but there's definitely some fated situations happening with the lunar square, the nodes, and obviously it's about, emotional realms that are really clashing with relational ambitions. To navigate Sunday, I would say, tap into that Sag moon, explore new philosophies. If you need to travel, if you need to plan some travel or education, that's great. Certainly the moon sextiling Mars means that we have support from others. So if you need to travel, maybe you're talking to, travel agency, or if you're needing to, think about going back to school, maybe you're making an appointment to talk to a counselor, or, you want to plan a trip with your partners. You're like, where do we want to go? We need help from other people. And I think that's really how you kind of navigate getting out of the Mars-Jupiter square that's building. It's going to boost cooperation with others. And obviously, this is also about balancing enthusiasm with realistic kind of needs to avoid, overextending ourselves that can come through some of the squares that we'll see on Sunday. The evening is going to finish up with that moon square, the nodes, and that's going to take you into what will be next week. And we're going to talk all about what's happening at the beginning of September. So, with that being said, that was kind of like the week at a glance. We are going to be focusing on Venus in Leo. So I would love to talk to you guys a little bit about where this transit is taking place for the 12 rising signs. I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology that I like to practice. I'm not a Vedic astrologer. And I'm going to show you guys where Venus transiting through Leo is taking place for the 12 rising signs. I recommend listening to your ascendant sign first. That's going to tell you exactly which house Venus is in. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Venus rules in your chart, where she's going to be hanging out for the next couple of weeks, and how to better feel the love of this transit. Obviously, to my Taurus, Leo, and Libra risings, this is going to be most impactful for you. So definitely listen up to where Venus is kind of moving through in the skies. We're going to start first with my Aries and my Aries risings. What's up, Aries? How you guys doing? I'm excited to see Venus go through your 5th house for you guys. Obviously, she's moving through Leo, so it's going to be in a fellow sister fire sign. So not only will you have Venus trining Saturn and Neptune in your sign, which is great for getting in touch with what you need to feel happy, what you need for self-expression, anything connecting to creative projects, to hobbies, to dating, to children. There can be a sense of what you set your goals on, what you're visualizing, and what you're saying to yourself, or you're like, it has to be this or better. Definitely feels like it's kind of like sticking this week for you. So I think you guys are going to like that. Now, Venus obviously is going through your 5th house of romance, creativity, and fun. But she is tied to your 2nd house of values, personal possessions, and finances, as well as your 7th house of relationships and partnerships. I think with like the sextiles that are happening with like Mars, just between Mercury and Mars, there's a lot of communication in relationships or some kind of creative collaboration that's going on. But I predict for you guys that it's very possible that sparks can fly in hobbies or love affairs. Some of you guys can have financial boosts from creative ventures, but I would still watch out for some jealousy or some envy that can be coming up with friends or other people with that opposition to Pluto. Take risks, have fun, play. The 5th house is like theaters, bars, going out to where there's live music and places where you can connect with others. And the 5th house is the house of true love. So to have, Venus going through there and it's connected to your 7th, it means that existing relationships can really benefit from revamping date nights, doing something fun. It's also great to be single and get out there and mix and mingle, because I think likely you will meet somebody throughout these transits. But yeah, plan playful dates or express, affection boldly throughout the next couple of weeks. Maybe surprise your partner with a dramatic gesture. I think that can really kind of get this transit kicked off the right way. Let me know how that manifests for you, Aries. We have Taurus and Taurus rising. What's going on, Taurus? Venus, your chart ruler, is moving through Leo, and it's going to be going through your natal 4th house. All right, Taurus. Well, wherever Venus is where you are. So the 4th house obviously is home, family, property, and roots. So because Venus rules you, your 1st house, which is yourself and your identity, and it's also connected to your 6th house, which can be about your daily habits, your routines, and your health. Part of the way that you're going to bring more beauty, more, I think, love, more affection, and like warmth through your home is going to be caring for your home, okay? Because it's connected to the 6th house. So you may find that, you're focusing on beautifying your living space. You want to bring in new furniture, you want to bring in, new art or decor. Maybe you're hosting a family event. Maybe you are looking at property and real estate. But I would feel like this next couple of weeks, self-worth is really tied to your family dynamics, and there could be potential health or work improvements through heartfelt changes, especially if you have changes you need to make in your kitchen, if you need to improve a home office, if you're wanting to improve a home gym. That stuff can happen. And certainly like family relationships can also be really significant. So you might go home and visit family might come to visit you. People might be bringing you beautiful things to your home, or sweets or treats. That's going to be something else that can kind of happen here. And I would say to best feel the love, create a cozy, luxurious space. Really focus on the evenings that you're kind of having at home, cuddling with loved ones and really affirming your inner security. I think is actually where you're going to be feeling the most love. So hopefully that's helpful for you, my Taurus and Taurus risings. Enjoy that transit. And Gemini rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Venus transiting through the sign of Leo, moving through your natal 3rd house. For you, Gemini, obviously the 3rd house is all about cars, siblings, gadgets. It's also about short distance trips in your local community. So Venus is tied to your 12th house, which is a little bit more hidden and subconscious. It's about solitude. And the 5th house, which is about creativity and romance. So to see Venus go through your 3rd house, I'm expecting there to be more flirty conversations, kind of sexy texts, certainly dating online or meeting people locally as possible. You might find that hidden talents emerge, particularly in media, websites, or any creative writing. But it's also possible that there can be some secrets in love that can surface, and it can kind of come up in terms of communications that you're having with other people. I think for the most part, Venus sextiling Uranus in your sign also means that because you're feeling a little bit more spontaneous, you're connecting and communicating in a new way. I think to best feel the love, spending time with siblings, maybe indulging a little bit in a short distance trip, or maybe improving a vehicle can be beneficial. But also sending somebody like a love note, or, telling other people, phoning them and letting them know you miss them or how much you care about them, or giving them some kind of like words of affirmation. You want to be connecting through words that really celebrate your uniqueness this week. And also, I think finding ways to better kind of connect with some of your social groups. I think that's going to be part of this as well. Hope that's helpful for you, my Geminis. Cancer and Cancer rising, you guys are going to experience Venus transiting through Leo in your natal 2nd house. And this is certainly a house that Venus likes to be in. It is connected to your money, your finances, your values, your personal possessions, your self-esteem. So with Venus ruling your 11th house of social networks, friends, and goals, and your 4th house of home, family, and anything relating to property, as Venus goes through the 2nd house, this basically means that there can be opportunities for income somehow connected to social networks, or home-related luxuries can be a focus over the next couple of weeks. maybe you're reassessing what you truly value when it comes to your friendships or when it comes to your roots. There can also be an emphasis on emotional or family support, financial support being somehow tied also to property and real estate. But I'm interested to see how this manifests for you guys, because Venus going through the second house is really good for receiving support, having better self-esteem. And I think that there is some good money stuff that can be setting up for a lot of you guys in terms of boosts in your income, connecting to changes that you're making with your career. Hope that's helpful for you, Cancer. Leo and Leo risings, you guys are going to be experiencing Venus transiting through your sign. So if you happen to be a Leo sun, moon, or rising, Venus is going to be blessing you with her good charm and dashing looks. Obviously, the first house deals with your body, your appearance, and yourself, as well as your identity. Okay, so going through the first house is perfect for getting compliments, having a glow up, improving how you look. I mean, obviously, after having a Venus retrograde there a couple summers ago, a Mars retrograde earlier this year, a Mercury retrograde, I think a lot of you guys have kind of felt like you've been under construction and maybe be reworking your relationship to yourself or something with your health or your appearance. So Venus is obviously connecting to your 10th house of career, reputation, and your status, as well as the third house of communication and learning or speaking, writing, or media. So if you have a public announcement to make, a professional announcement to make, if you're wanting to debut a website, a podcast, if you're wanting to just get yourself out there and be seen and be heard, great transit for that. I think that many of you guys are just going to be really radiating charm, and you're going to find that it's really spotlighting your career through your personal flair and enhancing how you connect and communicate with other people. So that's also going to kind of put more of a focus on you as well as your image. Now, to feel the love, I think you will feel the love because Venus is in your sign. I would embrace the compliments that you receive. I would focus on, your self-love and self-expression. Definitely dress to impress and affirm your worth daily, especially if you're out and about around town or if you're going to work meetings. Obviously, Leo is gold, right? It's yellow, gold, things that are bright, warm, very regal also. So this is a time where, you might have some people that are kind of like obsessed with you because it's going to oppose Pluto, or people who are a little jealous or envious. But I think that some of the sextiles to the third house can help you communicate and work through that. Some of the trines to the ninth is really great for traveling as well as learning. So enjoy Venus going through your sign. I'm sure a lot of you guys are really going to enjoy it. All right, Virgo and Virgo rising, you guys get to experience Venus transiting Leo in your natal 12th house. My Virgos, obviously the 12th house is behind the scenes. It's subconscious, it's foreign lands. It's about solitude and spirituality and rest. Venus rules your 9th house traditionally of beliefs, higher education, and travel, and the 2nd house of finances and values. So there is like a sense of reevaluating or reassessing what your beliefs are about finances, relationships, and money. Yes, sometimes Venus going through the 12th house means there's like a hidden love affair or there's a secret admirer. But it could also mean that there is inner healing going on through, creative projects behind closed doors. I think of Virgo having Leo in the 12th house is like having like an artist's like studio or a place where you create in private or tapping into your hidden talents. And you might find that there can be philosophical or financial insights that come from kind of retreating and reassessing things. Just avoid escapism. I think that could be something else that can kind of happen with Venus in the 12th. Obviously, this is like bed pleasure, so there could be a lot of romance and things going on behind the scenes. But there can also be this feeling of being kind of iced out or isolated from romance and relationships, or reevaluating relationships, which also makes sense for you guys because you're coming into an eclipse next month in your 7th house. I think to feel the love, I would be meditating on Venus. I'd be meditating on self-love, also on forgiveness. And this is about connecting spiritually with art or music or something that helps you kind of express what's on your heart or your soul better. Good luck, Virgo. For my Libras and Libra risings, you guys are going to have Venus, your chart ruler, going through the 11th house, which is a really fun transit. This is a transit that is connecting to socializing, parties, groups, your goals, your friends. And Venus doesn't just rule you, it also rules your 8th house, which is going to be dealing with intimacy and shared resources, versus the 1st house, which is about self and identity. So there's clearly something changing and transforming about your financial goals, your joint finances, maybe even your relationship with friends. And obviously, because you're ruled by Venus, just off the bat, you're going to be feeling the effects of the opposition of Pluto pretty strongly. And that's going to be bringing up the themes of how you create, how you date what you love. And maybe there being some weirdness, some jealousy, and some envy that's kind of going on in certain social circles. To kind of navigate out of that, you want to be really focused on the trine to Saturn and Neptune, where you have the support of a partner, you have a therapist, or maybe you have a coach or somebody who's helping you focus on strengthening your goals and your connection to other people. But certainly, social circles can sparkle with romance. There can be, lots of things to go and do, people to see, stuff to kind of, focus on socially. And this is also great for deepening bonds or financial gains that can come through friends or networks. And it really enhances your visibility among groups and also your confidence. Libra, something that I would recommend is to really kind of focus on hosting gatherings, joining networks or groups, starting groups, and celebrating friendships with grand toasts that really kind of highlight some kind of collective joy. Enjoy, Libra. Let me know how it goes for you guys. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, Venus will be transiting the sign of Leo, moving through your natal 10th house of career, reputation, and visibility. Now, Venus obviously rules your 7th house of relationships, partners, clients, spouses, as well as the 12th house of what's behind the scenes, hidden or subconscious. So interesting aspects, because Venus going through the 10th house in general really does give you a little bit more professional kind of charisma, some charm. It can attract opportunities. You're really nurturing relationships that you have with people publicly. And certainly it can influence your partnership status, both professionally or personally. There can be some hidden inspiration that's kind of emerging because of the tie to the 12th house. And I also feel like, love can be found in the workplace if you're single. There can also be bringing in new clients or new business partnerships or relationships. Venus rules your partners and Pluto rules you. And so right off the bat, Venus going through the 10th house in opposition to Pluto means that there is a little tension where you're kind of going back and forth, revolving around, stuff's changing at home and there's a lot of heavy emotions, so there's shifts going on. But, I need to kind of keep things running in the direction of some of the success or some of the positive kind of relationships that have been built professionally. So you can see a little bit of tension in relationships about changes with career and changes with home. To stabilize that, lean into the trine with Saturn and Neptune in your 6th, or if you're focusing on your daily routine, your health, and your habits, and also support, maybe that's coming from other people in the office space, you can kind of navigate these two things pretty smoothly, okay? Good luck, and I hope it's a good one. Definitely, I would say network with flair, seek recognition, and work that really aligns with some of your professional alliances. All right, we've got Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. You guys are going to enjoy Venus going through Leo, a fellow sister fire sign, in your natal 9th house. Sag, I think you're going to like this, especially if you're like a Sag rising that's been like wanting to travel, wanting to go back to school, wanting to start a course or something like that. Now is a really great time for this. Obviously, the 9th house is the house you're familiar with. It has a Sagittarius energy, and it deals with your beliefs, your travel, as well as higher learning. Now, Venus is directly tied to your 6th house, which is about health and routines, as well as your 11th house, which is about friends and goals. So as Venus goes through the 9th house, you could be, traveling for work. You could be traveling with friends. You could be really indulging in pleasure, education, anything that's going to be relating to culture. And I feel like the predictions that I have for you guys is adventurous romances or study. Health and social groups can also benefit from expansive creative pursuits, but just indulging in a sense of adventure, whether it's quite literal or more figurative in terms of what you're learning, I think is going to be beneficial for you guys. And I would be exploring new cultures and sharing philosophical discussions that really kind of ignite shared visions. Long distance relationships can happening. New teachers can arrive. There can also be people who can show up that can kind of help you if you're needing some guidance when it comes to publishing or legal matters, okay? In particular, like a woman. Good luck. Capricorn and Cap rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Venus moving through the sign of Leo, going through your natal 8th house of transformation, joint resources, intimacy, secrets, and anything that's connecting to kind of like karmic entanglement is very much the 8th house, how we're enmeshed with other people. Now, Venus rules your 5th house, which is connecting to obviously romance and creativity. And it's also connecting to your 10th house, which is directly tied to your career, your reputation, your professional status. So as Venus goes through the 8th house, there's going to be a huge focus on finances. It's going to be very financial for you as well as for Cancer. The opposition of Pluto in the house of your money and Venus in the house of other people's money means there could be a little bit of like a standoff going on revolving around debt or a spending or a purchasing kind of theme. There could be a negotiation going on revolving around relationships or even, professional kind of salaries. I think for many of you guys, this is about passionate bonds that can deepen. We know that when planets go through the 8th house, there's a transformation. So transforming something about how we are in relationship. But there can also be financial mergers or creative investments that can boost your status. But obviously there can also be intensity that can test your trust. Now, I think to best feel the love, I would dive into vulnerability this next couple of weeks, express desires perhaps a little bit more dramatically than you typically would, especially in close relationships. And this can be a time where you're learning how to trust and feeling like safe and secure with another person. And certainly this can be a time where there's, inheritance opportunities. There could be bonuses, partners can be a little bit more generous as Venus goes through your 8th house here as well. And Venus will be trining Saturn, your chart ruler. So especially if you're trying to deal with property, buying or selling, if you're trying to, get mortgages, get loans, if you're trying to pay stuff off, if you're looking for some kind of financial home or family support, it can be beneficial for that as well. Good luck, Capricorn. Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you guys are going to have Venus transiting Leo, your opposite sign, moving through your natal 7th house of relationships and partnerships. Now, for you guys, Venus loves being in the 7th house. That's where she's pretty comfortable. So if you're a single Aquarius or Aquarius rising, you might like this transit. You might meet somebody who's pretty fixated on you. And if you're in an existing relationship, it can be a time where there has been a reevaluation of relationships, maybe bettering communication. Now you might actually start to see a relationship glow up. And Venus is obviously tied to your 4th house, which deals with your home and your family or your roots, as well as your 9th house, which is very much connected to your beliefs or travel. So Venus going through the 7th house right off the bat, Venus will oppose Pluto in your sign, where I think somebody might be really interested and fixated on you or really drawn to you, or somebody's wanting to partner and you're like, I'm kind of going through something. But on the other side of this, Venus is also trining Saturn, which can improve communication, and it's sextiling Uranus, which could bring spontaneous connections with new people, romantic fun, and flings. So a lot of aspects for Aquarius risings. I would say that I predict for you guys that there is going to be, romantic opportunities, romantic spotlights happening. I think home and philosophical harmony through bold connections, bettering communication, and attracting dynamic and good-looking partners. To feel the love, I would say commit with flair, maybe plan some fun trips or some deep talks that celebrate some kind of mutual growth that you're having in a relationship. And then finally, we have Pisces and Pisces risings. You guys are going to be experiencing Venus transiting through the sign of Leo in your natal 6th house of health, habits, and routine. Now, Venus is directly tied to your 3rd house, which is all about the mind, communication, siblings, vehicles, travel, and the 8th house, which deals with intimacy, shared resources, also anything in regards to taxes, inheritances, intimacy. And so what's interesting about this transit is that, Venus, she sometimes has a bit of a challenge going through the 6th house. This is because relationships take work, right? Service, work, all that stuff. So when I put it together, I'm like, all right, well, clearly for Pisces risings, this is about bringing beauty to your daily routines. This is about indulging more when it comes to your health and your habits. Maybe creating creative workflows that enhances your well-being. There can be talks that lead to deeper bonds or financial shifts in your daily life. We can also find that there can be opportunities to find work, to enjoy pleasure as a part of your daily routine, to also factor in time for dating, for art. And beneficial aspects are definitely Venus trining Neptune, which is your modern day ruler. So work can come in that can kind of alleviate some financial pressure that maybe you've been feeling recently. I also think what's interesting is that this can bring new pets for some people. This can also bring an improvement of your health as well. And that's because you're investing more of your time or you're spending a little bit more money on quality things. So like gym equipment, memberships, higher quality food, and maybe even like sprucing up or improving your office or your workspace, bringing in some art, some pops of color, and the relationships that you have with people professionally can improve as well. So infuse, some of your routines with joy. Make time for dating, make time for creative hobbies, help others generously, and foster heartfelt connections to make the most of this transit. All right, guys. Well, that is the week ahead for August the 24th through the 31st, 2025. That's what I've got for the astro weather. Obviously, quite a fiery mix going on this week. I hope it was helpful in planning your week ahead. And if this resonated with you, definitely give me a thumbs up and like this video. Make sure you comment your thoughts below and let me know how the week manifests and kind of unfolds. Make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel so that way you're alerted as when I have new videos. And we'll be exploring so much more in the next couple of weeks. We've got eclipse videos coming up. We're going to be talking about Saturn retrograde back into Pisces. We're going to be talking also about Uranus getting ready to go retrograde as well. So there's definitely lots in store for the next couple of videos. I'm excited to talk to you guys more about this at length. I hope you have an amazing week and things go well for you. And I will catch you guys all here very soon. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care.